Hi, this is Dr. Boney with a video to show you how to use a compound microscope. You've already went over the parts of a compound microscope, I'm sure, with your instructors, and this is just a video to show you how to actually use the scope. So the first thing we want to do is unravel the cord and plug it in. You should also notice that the stage is all the way up and hopefully the red lens is facing straight down. So from this point, we have to disinfect the scope. The first thing we're going to do is take a sterile alcohol pad, and starting from the top down, we're going to rub the ocular lenses. This is the part you look through. And then we are going to also disinfect the lens objectives, as well as, if you want, the stage. You can never really disinfect too much. The next thing we're going to do is dry it off. You can use gauze, you can use Kim wipes, whatever your teacher might provide you. And again, starting from the top, we're going to dry these off, as well as the objective lenses and the stage. From this point, we can now turn on the microscope. Now, what I see here is there's light coming up from the bottom. It's not very strong. And when I take a look inside of the scope, the light's not the way I want it. So there's a few things you can do to improve the amount of light, be it too strong or too weak. The first thing you can do is adjust this knob to increase the amount of light this way. It's still not very strong. Another thing I can do is take the diaphragm, which is under the stage, and I can adjust that, there we go, to allow more light. So both of those allow you to adjust the light to how much you feel works for your eyes. So the next thing I need to do is grab the coarse adjustment. And again, that's the bigger of the two adjustments. And scroll down so that I have the stage at the bottommost place that I can put it. I'm now ready to put my sample on the stage. I put my sample labeled face up on the stage and held in place by these little clamps. The next thing I do, I don't yet look inside of here. I look under the bottom and I try to move these stage adjustment knobs so that my sample is directly under the light source that's coming up. Now I know that I am shining light through an area that actually has my sample. So from this point, I'm now able to begin the process of looking at whatever it is I'm trying to find. So, step one, make sure the red lens, which is called the scanning lens, is locked in place directly down. That's not the low power lens. It's called the scanning lens because it allows you to find and zero in on and clarify the particular item that you're looking at. So in order for me to get this thing clear, I'm going to use the coarse adjustment first, the larger knobs, and I'm going to look inside of the scope and I'm going to turn it until I see what appears to be my sample. It's fairly clear, but it's not super clear. And in order to do that, I'm going to move my fingers out to the fine adjustment knob. And while looking inside of the scope, I'm going to adjust the picture as clear as I can get it. There it is. So now my object is clear on the scanning lens. The overall amount of magnification so far is 40x. And the reason why is the scanning lens has a 4x magnification and the oculars have a 10x. So when we multiply those values, we get 40x. So now I'm ready to magnify a little bit more. I'm going to hold one of the lenses and click the yellow lens. That's actually the low power lens on this particular scope. And this particular lens is actually 10x. So that means my total magnification is 100 times. 10x from the objective and 10x from the ocular. And now when I go back in to look, I can still kind of see my sample, but it looks a little bit blurry. And so my rule of thumb at this point is to grab my fine adjustment and fine tune the picture so that once again, it's very clear. My sample's clear. Depending on what your sample is or what your class is or what teacher you have, This might be enough magnification to look at whatever you're looking at. For example, if you're looking at a letter E on a newspaper or something with a pen. But if you wanted to go farther, we can do that. We're going to now go to the high power. So I'm going to click over to the blue one, click it in place, repeat the process. Again, use my fine adjustment to get the picture as clear as I can. Perfect. I'm going to actually add a little bit more light. It's a little bit dark. So I'm going to actually turn my diaphragm, oh, there we go, to add just a little bit more light. Now, for most of the courses that are not microbiology, that's about as far as you're going to go. In order to go farther, you would need to be looking at something like bacteria or yeast, which are way too small to look at and magnify by the power of the high power scope. Now, this high power lens, by the way, is a 40x. And multiplied by the ocular lens of 10, we are now magnifying 400 times. That is still not enough for certain kinds of bacteria. So if you're in a microbiology class, you may have to go yet a step further, and you're going to need one more ingredient in your system of microscopy, and that is this. This is immersion oil. And this oil is used only with the immersion oil lens, which we haven't yet looked at. So let's talk about it for a second. This particular lens is the largest one. It also has a black and white stripe, and it also has a 100x for this particular objective lens. Multiplied by the ocular lens gives me an overall magnification of 1000. Now there's a technique to this. What I have to do is I have to take my oil, I remove the lid. I'm then going to turn the objective lenses so that I am between the large, or I should say the high power lens, and the oil immersion lens. I do not want to click the oil immersion lens down into place yet. I'm going to put 1 drop of oil directly on the light source that's coming up on the stage. I'm going to be careful to allow this drop of oil to fall onto the slide and not touch it, as to avoid contamination. I've now put 1 drop directly on the slide, directly where the light source is coming up. Now I'm going to flip over the immersion oil lens under the sample, and you will note that the lens now looks like it's actually sticky. It's stuck to the oil. That's what we want. We're trying to create a channel to allow us to more easily see the image. Then everything from here is a repeat of before. We're going to go into the view. We're going to take our fine adjustment, and we're going to turn. Many times it is over top. And now we can clearly see the sample we had. This is as far as you would go with a compound microscope. And so at this point, now that we're finished, we've made our observations, we need to remove the slide properly, we need to clean everything, and we need to return the scope back to normal. So the first thing that we can do is twofold. For safety, you can remove the lens between both samples again, and using the course adjustment, bring the stage all the way down. We want to do that to make sure that we do not damage the immersion oil lens. We then take our sample and we dispose of it properly. And now we have to disinfect once again. So what are we going to do? We're going to follow the exact same techniques that we followed before. First thing I'm going to do, shut off the light. I'm going to then grab my alcohol. And starting at the top, I'm going to alcohol the ocular lenses. I'm going to alcohol the objective lenses, obviously including the immersion oil lens, which has oil on it, and the stage. The next thing I'm going to do is grab some gauze, dry off everything in the same order. Dispose of that. From this point now, I can, now that the instrument is off, I can unplug it. I can then return the objective lens of the scanning back to the place of deployment. I can use the course adjustment to raise the stage, and I can very carefully return the cord back to its proper place. The very last thing, of course, is how to pick this up. We never just pick it up with one hand. We put one hand over the arm, another hand over the base, and then we return it to where it goes. This video will help you to become more familiar with the compound microscope. If you have any questions, you can ask your teachers or myself. This is Dr. Boney signing off.